This is Dateline News and Conversation. Well, this is a regular weekend. We're hoping to make it regular with our guests. I shouldn't say guests, they're not guests, they are colleagues, they are co hosts. Tonight, we have Hendrik Weber from Norway, Blaz Kavcic from Slovenia,
Hi.
and hopefully Stanislav Krapivnik will be able to join us.
Hi.
And hopefully will be able to join us.
May I just remark that there is an echo in at least.
Yeah, I haven't
what
had
I
that
hear.
before.
May I just remark that there is an echo in at least.
Yeah, I haven't had that before.
May I just remark that there is an echo in this.
Yeah, I haven't had that before.
May I just remark that there is.
Hendrik, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Hendrik, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Can both of you hear me now?
Excellent.
Okay, I
And
put
no
on
echo.
headphones in. Well, I've never had that echo before. That was crazy. Well, there's a lot to talk about. My goodness. I was hoping that Stas Krapivnik would be able to join us because I wanted to talk about some really important things, but we're going to go ahead and begin the show. I want to skip down to some topics that don't involve Russia directly. And I want to begin with the Israeli-Palestinian genocide. You are two Europeans from Norway, from Slovenia. I'd like your opinion and your comments on what you see going on there between Israel and Palestine, and specifically how you see the role of the United States. And the thing that's really kind of concerned me since October 7th is why has there not been more support from the other Arab Islamic countries to the people of Palestine? Plus, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts on what's going on there from Slovenia?
It's extremely important event with global consequences. October 7th events have hopefully opened the eyes of many to the fact that Israel has been exercising genocide against the Palestinians from the get-go, from 1948 on, and more, that Israel as a project is an imperialist project, more precisely a Zionist one. Very few analysts go deep enough to expose that at the core, there is a thesis that that Jews
have been mistreated through the history, so they need to have a special state, special territory, where they will be safe. This is a monstrous and extremely manipulative idea protected by the dogma of anti-Semitism. The Jews, the Palestinians, and any other ethnic or religious group deserves equal constitutional rights. Crimes from the past, such as Holocaust or annihilation of indigenous population of the United States, should not be used as an excuse to perpetrate new crimes against the population of today. The Zionist idea is based on Old Testament, supposedly giving rights to the Jews to inhabit the territory of Palestine, and even more, nominating the Jews to be the chosen people, and all the rest of human... Yes, please. Yes.
Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
We had a connectivity issue, and I just changed the location of my VPN.
Okay.
Would you mind starting from the top?
Okay.
Of when I threw the question to you about what's going on in Israel and Palestine. I think we're okay now.
Okay. Should I restart?
Yeah. Start from the beginning.
Okay. So these events are huge with global consequences. October 7th events have hopefully opened the eyes of many to the fact that Israel has been exercising genocide against the Palestinians from the get-go, from 1948 on, and more, that Israel as a project is an imperialist project, more precisely a Zionist one. Very few analysts go deep enough to expose that at the core, there is a thesis that as Jews have been mistreated through the history, they need to have a special state where they will be safe. This is a monstrous and extremely manipulative idea protected by the dogma of anti-Semitism. The Jews, the Palestinians, and any other ethnic or religious group deserves equal constitutional rights. Crimes from the past, such as Holocaust or annihilation of indigenous population of the United States, should not be used as an excuse to perpetrate new crimes against the population of today. The Zionist idea is based on Old Testament, supposedly giving rights to the Jews to inhabit the territory of Palestine, and even more, nominating the Jews to be the chosen people, and all the rest of humanity to be lesser people destined for annihilation. The lesson we should all learn from this is that all religions are to be treated with respect, but positioned correctly. Religions are a very important part of most of our cultures. They can be moral guidance, helping people to feel belonging to a wider community. As Durkheim or Spinoza teach, religions are ubiquitous instruments of controlling the people. Religions are many, thousands and thousands, but many people are indoctrinated into believing that there is only one religious explanation, and thousands of other explanations of God and the universe are wrong, and wrong believers are to be annihilated. On the other hand, humanity has identified this problem and reached an agreement written in charters and constitutions: freedom of faith and separation of church and the state. The main perpetrator against this principle are the USA, using God as an accomplice in any venture, including perpetrating crimes against humanity. Which God, one should ask? Another important question, which is only described but not properly analyzed by the leading alternative big names, is the miracle of Israel controlling the United States, a tiny states controlling the strongest states in the world, the tail wagging the dog. How can Netanyahu come to American parliament as a big star and eat Obama and Biden for breakfast? My view is that no, nor Israel, neither AIPAC are controlling the United States based on their own force, but all of the mentioned persons and institutions and many others are controlled by the same force in the background, the concentrated decision-making power. Now, about the other states which you have asked, Regis, other Arab states are mostly puppet regimes controlled by the globalists via the USA. To a certain extent, we should positively expose Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran as a non-Arab Muslim state. Turkey, as very strategically positioned state, is playing 5D chess, not being loyal to anybody or anything.
Okay, that's very interesting analysis, Blaz. Boy, I've been wondering about what Turkey's role might be in this. I've also been wondering what Russia's role is in all of this. They've made it clear that Palestine needs support. I just heard yesterday that Russia sailed into the Red Sea. And I don't know if that's in support of the Houthis or what, but it's getting very complicated and I think very dangerous. Hendrik, what are your thoughts?
Oh, there is nothing left to say after after Blaz's analysis. I agree, of course, with you, Blaz. I think this whole conflict is really difficult, and sometimes I can choose a side in a conflict, but in this conflict I cannot choose a real side. On one side, I've said before, I'm grown up in a very Christian family, and the Christian society around me supports always Israel, and that has changed in the last half year. Because also Christians mean, or many of them mean, that Israel is not doing right to bomb Gaza in the way they are doing it right now. So Blaz already said, of course, the Jews have to have their own states. They was under suppression in hundreds and hundreds of years all around the world, or at least in Europe. But on the other side, the Palestinian people also want their own state, and the military actions in Gaza, they are completely crazy at the moment right now. That is not good, and there should be a real solution. On the other side, Israel had always had the support of the USA, so they could almost do what they want without getting any problems with the world society, if you want to call it like this. When it comes to the Arab states around, or Islamic countries around, that is of course a question. It's a kind of double standard from their side also. A country like Saudi Arabia could do something, but they don't want to, because they want to have a good relationship with the USA to sell their oil Maybe this is changing now in the future. I don't know. So for me, this conflict is really difficult to come up with a point where I can say, okay, this and this would be a good solution. We're talking always about the two-state solution, but it's difficult. Where should there be a border? There is almost nothing left. So honestly said, I don't know. It's for me, it's a really difficult conflict. And maybe I don't have enough information.
Yeah, what I want to ask each of you now, both of you, what do you think the United States is doing in this conflict? You can have, on the one hand, Joe Biden saying, "Oh, Netanyahu, calm down. Don't just be careful what you're doing." But on the other hand, America continued to send billions of dollars of aid and weapons directly to Ukraine. Hendrik, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the role of the United States in this conflict?
I think that's also difficult to say. Maybe Joe Biden wants that Israel is coming a little bit down, but when we have the next election and Trump is the president, I don't know what he is doing. He is maybe even greater supporter of Israel, if I understand that right. But as I say to you, I think I don't have enough background information to give a good analysis about that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Blaz, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree. The situation is very complex, and it all depends how far back into history one goes to explain those things. But as I said previously, I hope I was clear enough. I see United States here merely as a tool, as the strongest bludgeon of the world, which is hitting all over the world since the Second World War on. But even before that, if we briefly mention, from 1914 to 1945, Western civilization has killed more than 125 million people. And all religions and all doctrines were called for help, from Marxism to Christianity, everything. So the handlers of the world are using war systematically and regularly. So just looking at one war is, of course, too narrow perspective. We are analyzing deeply now the wars in Israel, and we should, and I think we should continue with this analysis, because it is extremely important. That fight of Palestinians, of Hamas, is something spectacular. One of the consequences is that young Jews in United States, according to research, are predominantly supporting Palestinians, and it was never the case before. So the dogma of this, or the trademark of Holocaust, has to the large extent fallen apart, and it's very important. I mean, I'm very respectful to Holocaust victims. One of my grandmothers was also killed in Auschwitz, and we are not a Jewish family; we are Slovenians, and there were concentration camps also in fascist Croatia, the independent state of Croatia. So we do have historical memory from those times. Now, back to the role of United States there. I mean, I don't think that Biden himself is very much a visionary, planning things. It's only it is the permanent states that is driving this car, and it's driving the car of the planet. And these wars are spectacles where people are really suffering, losing their lives, their livelihood. It's terrible. I mean, I can't. It's. I mean, if you see the pictures from Gaza or from Ukraine, it's terrible. Or from Moscow slaughter, which we will discuss later, probably. But the main thing, and I would like to conclude with that, that while we are commenting concrete wars, we are not paying enough attention to the main war, which is running globally, Agenda 2030. It's the war of the globalist caste against humanity and nature, and under the behind the curtains of these spectacles, which are played all the time, we don't see that this digital transformation is progressing all over the world, which means eliminating natural life. And this is also, I think, one of the main motives for the globalist caste to always perform something somewhere in the world, so that people concentrate on one particular problem and forget about the whole picture.
You made a very good point. Agenda 2030, which really is all about destroying our basic humanity, whether it's artificial intelligence, 5G, you're going to eat bugs and you're going to be happy, you're going to have no work, the World Economic Forum and Davos and all of that. Yeah, I agree, Blaz. We've talked about this many times. We're losing focus on the big picture, what is really happening geopolitically. So when we look at what's going on in Israel, when we look at what's going on in Ukraine, in Russia, when we look across the globe to what is going on in China and Taiwan, the United States provoking and threatening the Chinese, and even the North Koreans, as Trump infamously called the South Korean leader Rocket Man, he's now got a hypersonic missile. And the way I look at it, we have 4 major fronts in the war against humanity. And when I say that, it's because I believe that all of these wars are involving nuclear armed countries. And I think this is a big concern that not many people are talking about. And hardly anybody is talking about the fact that in the Middle East, everybody knows, not officially, that Israel has nuclear weapons, which I think is a deterrent for other Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries in the Middle East from entering in support of Palestine. Yeah, I think it's a very frightening situation that the world is in, and not many people are aware of or are paying attention to it. I want to shift gears now. Hendrik, you're in Norway. Blaz, you're in Slovenia. What are your thoughts on the status of the war in Ukraine? Now, I will preface this. Funding in the United States is being tied up in Congress. So Ukraine is not getting the gravy train that they've been used to pay for their government pensions, their civil workers and their pensions. On the other hand, Ukraine is becoming increasingly more aggressive in attacking Russia and deep into Russia. I want to know what your thoughts are about this. Has the United States and the West are they realizing that Ukraine is a failed state and that this effort to strategically defeat Russia has failed. Hendrik, I'm going to go to you first on this.
Yes, I think so. If we would had some free media in our Western world, now I'm talking about Europe, then we would known already that this war is lost for Ukraine. On the military way, Ukraine has not a chance. Even if Germany sends the last 3 tanks they have, or Norway sends one old F-16 fighter or whatever, it's impossible to win this war on the battlefield. And I started with to talk about media, because if we had this free media, they would told us that the citizens in Europe, and we could avoid that thousands and thousands of Ukrainian young people had to die. And these dyings continue because our politicians are looking at this conflict and still saying we can win this. I don't know how many crazy ideas or nightmares they have to came about this idea. Nobody is coming up with a diplomatic solution or with the idea to start negotiations. Jens Stoltenberg said it's impossible to negotiate with Russia. We cannot trust them. He said in Brussels some days ago. But the war is lost. And if Ukraine does not get any support, and especially money, then the whole state will collapse. And then it's a question, if I would be Zelensky, I would take a train over the border to and hide in a mountain village somewhere. I don't know, because his position is, I think, really weak now. There are a lot of persons in Ukraine who would like to take over. Some of them are more hardcore, some of them are less. But I don't know. With the support of the West, or at least of the European countries, this war will continue, and there will many more thousand Ukrainian lives being destroyed, and young people die. Of course, in Russia the same, but Russia will win this war in the end. On the battlefield, there is no question for me that Russia will win in the end. And then it's the question, what is left of Ukraine? Maybe a part in the West is left, but it's not a sustainable state anymore, I think.
Well, you mentioned a couple of really good points. From your point of view, there's no winning this war on the battlefield. The other point that you mentioned was Zelensky. Polls are indicating he's got less than 30% favorability rating. He fired Zaluzhny, his top general. He fired several of his closest, intimate friends who have been his circle of influence and power in Ukraine. This man apparently now is isolated within his own government. And that's how I read the handwriting on the wall. I think it's a very desperate situation. And we'll pursue this a little bit further. But before we go on, Blaz, what are your thoughts about the status of the conflict and what's going on in Ukraine?
Well, I'm following daily reports from the specialists for the military questions to a certain extent. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the silver lining of all these reports is that this war will be won by Russia. But of course, it has become clear that from the very beginning it was not a war between Ukraine and Russia. It is actually unprovoked aggression of the West, meaning NATO, European Union, and United States and Britain, against Russia. So that's why it's not one small state against the big Russia. It's practically half of the world, 3/4 of a world against Russia. That's why it's a very complex military operation, and that's why it's taking so long. And I feel sorry for all the people who are suffering, who have died on all involved sides. Of course, I don't feel sorry for those who are really toxically indoctrinated with Nazism, and they are enjoying in performing what they do. So militarily, I think the situation is well understood, and one of the consequences, which I think is also clear, is that Russian army is getting stronger and stronger, and probably qualifying for the strongest, best equipped, best motivated army in the world today. And this is one of the consequences of this war. There is a historic change of trend from Russia getting involved in Syria against ISIS on. So this is the moment where Russia started to play a little bit different tune, and also changed, I think, direction of history, because Syria is a very strategic question which deserves a special study, and it's very important questions related to Syria and involvement of Russia. Now, so far, we can say that Russia gets militarily involved when attacked or seriously threatened, and when invited by the states under attack, which was the case in Syria. The negative consequences of this war and then the war in Israel and all other wars is that all the budgets of all the states of the world are getting militarized, meaning that the portion of the money allocated to destruction, to military, is growing enormously. And what I'm worried in Russia after this war is over is what I have started to call the McNamara syndrome, because McNamara is one of the meanest technocrats who came from automobile industry to industrialize war industry in United States after Second World War. And then the consequence of this is that when you have a large-scale industrial manufacturing of weapons, then you have to use them. And I'm afraid that similar consequences we will see in the people who are coming after us will see in Russia and in China and in other countries in the decades to come, if trends do not change.
Yeah, you made some very important points. The United States, and I'm an American, as everybody knows. I'm living in Yalta, but I'm watching what the United States is doing globally. In Taiwan, North Korea, in Israel, and now, and for the last 10 years, in Ukraine. I see the United States as being desperate and being really on the verge of a total collapse of the Western economy. You're an economist, but everything I've been reading lately about the power and the influence in the United States really all over the world is fading quickly. The de-dollarization effort is going in warp speed. And I've been talking to people, and they're telling me that they're taking and converting their American dollars into gold, silver, and even the ruble and the Chinese yuan. So when we look at, from my perspective, what's happening in Ukraine with the United States Congress all tied up over so many issues, but not giving Biden the approval to send 60-some billion dollars more to Ukraine just to keep the country running, I see this as a really desperate final gasp of American influence in the world. Hendrik, what are your thoughts about America's rapidly declining influence around the globe?
I think you are right. So the U.S. don't want to have to do something anymore with this Ukrainian war. It costs a lot of money, so they give it over to the Europeans. But I am thinking always about this point that these politicians have these kind of crazy ideas. I can understand that, but unfortunately, the people did not understand it. In Europe, people, when I talk to people around me, they know something is wrong, but they cannot set the pieces together. They don't find out that this has something to do with the whole system, and we are always connected to the US politics and policies. So they have the feeling something is wrong, but they don't know what is really going on because they don't understand. They don't have the information. That's why I'm always saying, if we would have free media who would told these kind of things, who would point out that this and this and this is going wrong, why we hanging on the US, why we don't find out our own foreign policy for Europe or each country by themselves. That would be much better, because the US is a sinking boat, without any doubt. And when they want to start to confront or to provoke China, that could be a nightmare too. So I'm not understanding what they are doing, actually.
Blaz, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we are all watching a controlled demolition, so they know exactly what they are doing. I agree with Hendrik that one of the prerequisites to go forward would be free media, but free media in the systems which are prevailing today in the world would in 24 hours not be free media anymore. So any editor, reporter, many have been killed. We know many have been killed who couldn't resist telling the truth. So as long as we do not change the governance of the countries we live in, there will be no change. We are going in the same direction. We should ask ourselves not only what the people think, it is important, but we should first ask ourselves who is sitting at the steering wheel. And the main controversy today is that at the steering wheel of all the national states of European Union, we don't have people who feel themselves responsible to the citizens of their own states, but they just follow the orders. Also the management of United States is just following the orders from behind. So as long as we do not crush this system, and crushing is not enough, we also have to know what we want. And that's why I have already said, and I will repeat, where are the liberation, defense and liberation teams in each individual states? Or are we really hoping and praying that from 1,000 benevolent people, the ideas will somehow grow together into one concept? I don't see and so I don't see this happening. So it is up to academics, and we have discussed with Hendrik before what is the situation in academia today all around the world. It's all blackmailed. It's all playing to the tune, or it's all publishing only the things that they are invited to publish. So we have to formulate the national defense and liberation program state by state, and we have to cut this connection to the globalism, because right now, because of very complex monetary mechanisms, we, the people of the world, we are financing our own demise, and as long as we do not organize ourselves, it's going just the way the globalists like, because they had the policy of depopulation, and it's happening beautifully, and they are making a lot of money. The stock exchanges are exploding with profits because the military industry is breaking all the records. So what's wrong? I mean, nothing is wrong for the elite, and everything is wrong for us. So yeah, I think these questions are getting more and more acute, and I'm very happy to see more and more clear voices in free media speaking out the truth, at least partially.
Well, that's a good sign.
Sorry, Regis. Blaz, you're right, but then it looks like really dark on the horizon. So, but you are right, of course. If you start any free media, it is difficult today, and you never know if your channels are open and online the next day, because the European Union is coming up with all kinds of different laws and free speech and anti-hate speech laws. And of course, this is all against us. Without any question. They don't want to hear these voices, and they put them under pressure. And that is, of course, really difficult for everybody who want to start any kind of media or want to give an honest report about what is going on in his or her country, because we are dependent on US platforms everywhere. If it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever, Rumble, I don't know. We are dependent. Europe has not anything like this. And that is, of course, also a problem. Russia has something similar. China has something, but that's not connected to us here in the European Union. And when you Blaz, for example, say something like this, you are already a right-wing person and a populist, because you are delegitimizing the state. That is, of course, already really, really dangerous in some countries. I know Germany has given out a new law that it's forbidden to criticize politicians in Germany. So we are living really in a crazy situation. And
yes,
and the
I
question,
agree. I agree.
Yes,
I agree with you completely regarding also this thesis of free media. I just want to emphasize that free media can only survive and thrive in free society. Otherwise, and the other thing is, free media can fairly describe situation, but then we have to ask ourselves, now what? So what are we going to do? Okay, now we know the truth. The truth is black. Are we going to do anything about it, or what are we going to do about it? And the funny part, okay, the funny part is that most of the solutions are already written in most of our constitutions. It's not that we would now be discussing something completely outlandish.
You're right.
I mean, what I'm emphasizing is let's implement our constitutions. And now we have this Corona years, 4 years behind us, and let's make a check which politician has said to the people that the constitution of our country has been breached during these 4 years. I don't know a politician like this, and we have to come to the question of constitution. What is constitution? Constitution is a document where we people who live here and now, I mean, each of us has some decades of our lives, and we would like to have good lives, I suppose. And the basic documents where we define what we want and what we don't want is a constitution. And we can build into constitution all good ideas, from Confucianism to Bible to philosophies, everything which we agree upon among people living in certain countries here and now today. So it's just of how we connect together these things. I think we generally agree on everything. And yeah, you say, well, it's black. Huh. Maybe it's really black, but it's better that we see that it is black, and then we ask ourselves, can we do anything about it? Then just say, no, it's really not that black. It will be good, because this is the situation we are in, and people are, at least in Slovenia today, people live relatively comfortable lives. Most of the people, most of the time. When you are ill, or when you have some accident, or when you are looking for a well-paid job, then you are alone and you are in trouble. But most of the people, most of the times, are relatively okay. Some are extremely okay. And the main problem of at least Slovenian society today is corrupt middle class, which I always thought middle class will be the driver of positive trends in society. But now they are so conformistic that it will have to be much worse before it will start to get better. But I'm sure this system will collapse. And it's just, I don't know how and when and so on. But also conversations like this, I think, are contributing to bad things going down and better things coming up.
Well, I agree.
Agree completely with you.
I've kind of likened and hope that these conversations are like weeds or dandelions that spring up in the cracks in the concrete. And the concrete is the overwhelming noise, propaganda and news of the West, the United States. And little by little, I think we're breaking through. Now, with the time we have left, I want to shift our focus to Russia. Now, we've talked a little bit about the massacre at the Crocus City Hall theater. I don't like to speculate, but there's an ongoing Russian investigation when little tidbits of information are coming out. Russia has arrested more people from Tajikistan or from across the Urals in the last couple of days that are connected with the massacre 3 weeks ago. Now, what I really want to ask your opinion about is the Russian Ministry of Defense has revealed that since January of this year, that's 3 months, 100,000 Russian men and women have enlisted, signed contracts to be part of the Russian contract military full time. In the week after the Crocus City Hall massacre, 16,000 Russians enrolled, signed up. Hendrik, I'm going to come to you first. What do you make of this from when you're sitting in Norway, where Russia already has maybe close to 1 million people already called up, now 100,000 and 16,000 in the couple of days after the massacre have enlisted? How do you interpret this from where you sit?
Oh, I think without any doubt that Russian society is very united. And I think there are two reasons for all these volunteers. Maybe. The first one is that in the beginning of this conflict in 2014, I think many Russians was not clear about that this is not a war between Russia Russia and Ukraine, or that time the crazy government in Kiev and the separatists in eastern Ukraine. I think the Russian government in the last years was very good to inform the people, and not only the government, also Russian media, to inform people what is behind them. That is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. That is a war between Russia and the complete West and NATO. And people understand this and are fully aware about it. And that's one reason, maybe. And the other reason, what I can see, is that the people in Russia trust their government. They seeing that their politicians are doing something for them. They have jobs. They have GDP growth. They have, I don't know, cheap energy, oil and gas. Everything is working well, despite all the sanctions Western countries have imposed. So the people in Russia see that their government is really doing something for them, even if they maybe vote for another party as President Putin. But it doesn't matter. The overall view of the people in Russia is that the government is doing a quite good job because their lives are improving. And that's a completely different from Western countries or European countries. When I get home, sometimes in my home country, Germany, and visit them, it is like 20 years ahead, or not ahead, back, because when you're using the main road through Germany, you have black holes where you don't have any internet connection. So beep, 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 your phone is gone. Trains. I read an article by the train authorities or railway authorities in Germany. They want to be that their trains are in schedule in the year 2070. 2070. That is in 50 years. So my granddaughter can maybe get trains in who are in schedule. All this is not in Russia. Of course, Russia is a big country, and they have villages where they don't have any internet connections. But go to the bigger cities in Russia. I was there last year, and the trains are in schedule. Everything is clean and nice. You have internet connection everywhere. So the Russians have really good reasons to trust their government and trust that the government will do the best for the people. That is completely different, and I think that's the second reason why there are so many volunteers who are signed up for a contract with the Defense Department.
Yeah. And from my perspective, before I turn it over to Blaz, I think the Russian people are united behind their president and their government because they realized the existential real threat to their survival, their future. America's stated foreign policy, okay, is to strategically defeat Russia. And I can tell you from living here that I think everybody realizes that, in spite of the fact they may have differences with Putin and his government on domestic issues, but they certainly are united. Blaz, I wonder what your thoughts are from Slovenia. When you look at this, 100,000 people sign up for the Russian contract military service since January, but 16,000 signed up after Crocus. And when they were interviewed, they said it's to exact revenge. What are your thoughts from Slovenia?
Well, I think on the level of the normal citizens' thinking, I find this reaction as a positive one and a rational one. And I agree with those who say that we can be critical and we should be critical of Russian government, but the fact is that it is working better for their citizens that most or practically all other, or let's say most other governments are performing in the world. So this is a fact, and I think Russians have something to fight for real independence, and they are now nations which is growing. And I think we look from Slovenia, we look positively, because some of us started to understand better what has happened in Yugoslavia. This dismantling Yugoslavia was a training session for dismantling Russia, Soviet Union first, and now Russia. And then, of course, they wanted to dismantle Russia. And there is a very famous term coming from our part of the world, from our neck of the woods. And the term is Balkanization. And they wanted to Balkanize Russia. What does it mean? It means dividing Russia into smaller states, divide et impera, so divide and conquer. And I think the Russia is going in a positive way now. The only hope I would like to propose, if I would have any chance to communicate with Russian authorities, would be, please, for God's sake, try to distance yourself from Agenda 2030 policies. It is destructive and it is against the basic principles of Russian development. So I think that Russia is on a good way, and it has established itself as defender of many positive things around the world, and people from Latin America and from Africa and from Asia are now looking to Russia for I wouldn't say for solution, but for cooperation and for more equal relation which they would like to establish, because things are crumbling down. Like in France has lost most of Africa, and this is a big problem for Macron and for the French elite. Africans are looking for their new identity. Africa is the richest continent. It does not need to be supported, but needs to. The world needs to stop robbing Africa. Forget about collecting money to support Africa. So I think Russia is contributing to some very important positive trends in the world today.
Yeah, I think we probably all agree. Now, with the little time we have left, I've made it very clear that I've not voted since the first Obama election. I was caught up in the change you can believe in, but I very soon realized that he was not what he projected. I lost complete confidence in him and the entire. That's what it took for me to lose confidence in the entire American electoral process. I want to ask you, because people here in Russia are talking about it. Is it going to be Biden versus Trump? What are Europeans thinking? Hendrik, from you in Norway, Blaz, from you in Slovenia, what are people in your countries thinking about this upcoming, which I think very important election in the United States in November? Hendrik, to you first.
Then we are coming back to free media. When an 8-year-old boy in Norway told me that, oh, Trump is an idiot, then I'm asking, what are you knowing about Donald Trump? Where is coming your opinion from? Of course, from media, from Facebook, from social media. He has a crazy haircut. He is fat. He is old. He is a racist and whatever. But this propaganda is going so deep in our countries, I think, at least in Scandinavia, that the people are really afraid for Donald Trump. And I would say maybe for America as a country, it would be the best solution.
Okay. All right, Blaz, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are maybe a little bit different than thoughts of some groups in Slovenia, because I think Trump has quite some supporters here in Slovenia, partly because of Melania, his wife, who is Slovenian, and partly because of other motives. Now, personally, I have a little bit different view. I think that the globalists seem to have all bases covered. If we speak about American elections, Biden and Trump are both proven destroyers of humanity, and I can talk about concrete examples for both. Crypto Bobby, West, and Stein are disappointments. All elections within a system as it is should be radically boycotted. This would be my proposal. But if you insist in voting, go out and vote for Dr. Jill Stein.
Regis is already outside and smoking a cigar, maybe.
I think so, yes. And having a glass of Crimean wine.
Of course, that would be be good.
Or a cognac.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, Blaz. Of course, Trump is not better when it comes to the big questions of our time.
I want to thank the both of you for your insight into these very important issues. We'll look forward to doing it again next week. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.